This is the Nomad Barber, and when I'm not traveling the world, I'm listening to the Moustache and Blade.
Welcome to the Moustache and Blade podcast, a show dedicated to all things facial fur and traditional wet shaving in an effort to create global facial awareness. And now, here are your hosts, Douglas Smythe and Ryan Stephen Green.
Yes, I am Douglas Smythe from howtogrowmustache.com.
And me, your pal, Ryan Stephen Green.
We have a very special guest with us today, Mantic 59. We've been waiting for this episode for a while. Our schedules didn't seem to line up, but we finally got Mark in the studio with us today. And by in the studio, I mean him at his place, us at ours, and doing it right. But before we begin our little interview with Mark, I'd like to say that if you have any questions regarding mustaches or blades, please call us at 347-333-1511 and leave your question on our voicemail. If you're out of the country, that's 001-347-333-1511.
Holla at me. Holla at me.
You can also reach us by email. I am Douglas at Moustache and Blade, and he is Ryan at Moustache and Blade.
Why don't you write me?
And please, if you are near your computer, or in fact on your computer, go to mustacheandblade.com, which will bring you to a pre-populated tweet. And just get the word out that you are listening to your new favorite podcast on wet shaving and mustaches, Moustache and Blade. We've done the work for you, people. Just hit send. And Mark, Mantic 59 really needs no introduction, so we're not even going to go that route. We're just going to give you the interview here and now. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and enjoy. Welcome to the show, Mark Herro, Mantic 59. It's so great to finally have you here with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. So let's just start right off. Since the sent-off is going on right now, and I think rather successfully, let's begin with that. How's it going on your end, Mark?
Actually, a little, in some respects, better than what I thought. I'm getting a really good response from the judges, who I constantly pester to get their evaluations to me on time so I can get them posted. Yep. It seems like one or two always straggle. It's always a different one each week, but they're straggle, and I have to edit the post later in the week. But hey, I mean, that's fine. Everybody gets to still look at everyone's evaluations, and so far it's been very positive response. I will probably do something like it again in the spring based on what I've seen so far.
Great. We just had Lynn Abrams on last week, and he was really excited about it too, and really thought it was a great thing that you were doing. Just excited. In the software world, it seems like in the explosion of wet shaving over the last 5-10 years now, it started off with the hardware. Everyone was talking about the hardware and comparing hardware, and now it seems like it's time for the software to rear its head and be explored more. So I think it's really interesting what's going on in that way.
Yeah, I think so too. When I started about 10 years ago now, the focus was on hardware, but mainly because you could not find it, at least in the United States. It was very difficult to find. There were a few software vendors around, a couple of which are still around. Two I can think of offhand are QED and M's Place, now shaveplace.com.
Oh, yeah.
And those two have been trucking right along for years and years and years without a whole lot of publicity or a lot of talk on the shaving boards these days. They were much more talkative back in the day, but of course now that there's a larger universe of software, they're a little bit more in the background.
It was bound to happen. It's amazing. Every day it seems like there's someone new popping up.
I wish that I'd have more opportunity to try stuff out. I mean, I'm so young in this. Mark, for your knowledge, you and Doug are my two mentors.
Oh, geez.
Doug has been wooing me into this wet shaving world, and one of the first videos he sent my way was you teaching me how to shave, and it was a strange experience because I don't have specific memory actually of my dad teaching me to shave, though I'm sure that he did. I do remember that my first shave was in 7th grade. You know, I had the peach fuzz thing going on and all that. But it's always been cartridges. My dad has always been, kind of like the disposable variety, very, very cheap, Bic, plastic, little sticks kind of thing. I could get really long-winded with this, so why don't I just say I haven't had that much time to try out all of the wonderful products that are available, but the 3 soaps I have tried are the Razor Rock, Tipo Morbido, the Pedal Pushers, Sandalwood scent, and Doug's own Synergy shaving soap, Cavendish scent. They each have their merit. I've enjoyed them each for various reasons. But I when I see the websites, oh my goodness, there's just so much. It's overwhelming. It's like, I want to try all of these. They must be so wonderful. Like, where do you start? How do I like try each of them? You know, it's going to cost a fortune to get a hold of all of these, you know? So that's where I'm at in the software end of thing.
If it's any consolation to you, I've been in it a little longer than you have, and I still have a whole bunch of things that I need to try, either for myself or as a review for Sharpologist. There is still a ton of stuff out there that I have yet to try. And as far as learning, I actually learned and shaved with an electric razor for 30 years. So you're way ahead of me on the hardware. My dad was an electric shaver. He handed down his old electric shaver to me when I was probably 7th grade. And that's the way it went for years and years and years.
That's right. Yeah, I think you have a great story, Mark. For our listening audience that don't really know much about you or where you came from, they may know your videos and everything else, but can you give them a little background on how you got to where you are right now?
Sure. Well, as I said, I shaved with an electric razor for 30 years, never really thought much about it. You know, zip, done in 2 minutes kind of thing. It wasn't a particularly close shave. It never was, but it was good enough most of the time, unless I didn't go shaving for like a weekend, and then there would be the inevitable tugging and painful first shave before going to work on a Monday. And that's just the way I thought it was. You getting a 5 o'clock shadow at 2 o'clock I thought was normal, and that's what I did for 30 years. Then I started dating a wonderful young lady in the 90s. She wasn't in her 90s. This was in the 90s. That just adored the feel of my cheek and face when it was freshly shaven. And that was okay by me. But, of course, she could only do it for a little while before it would start to get all sandpapery again, as she called it. And then we got married in 2002. Oh, it was a year or so later. We were watching television, and there was a little documentary on Las Vegas where we got married and things to do in Las Vegas. And one of the things to do in Las Vegas that this documentary of the show talked about was getting a barber shave, with the straight razor and the lather and the whole bit. And my wife kind of glanced at me and said, "You need to try that sometime." And I thought to myself, okay, fine. Not really thinking much else. And then a year or so later, we decided to go back to Las Vegas for our wedding anniversary. And during that trip, one morning, my wife said, "Don't shave today. I've got a special gift for you." I kind of arched my eyebrow and went along with it. And she took me down to Art of Shaving at it was the one in Mandalay Place, rather, which is the little shopping area between Mandalay Bay and Luxor, and had them give me a barber shave. I think to say that shave being life-changing would be it is the right thing to say. I thought to myself,
definitely,
this was just so incredible. The change was just so amazing. The feel of my face was something I had never experienced before, and I thought to myself, yeah, I think I need to investigate this a little further. Needless to say, the wife really liked it. And for the next 2 days, I kind of walked around stroking my face in wonder, which later became known as face-turbation.
Yes.
And that's how it all got started. I got back and started searching the internet and discovered at that time, in 2004, there was very, very little information available. 1 or 2 shaving forums that have since gone belly up. That's how it all got started. And as they say, the rest is history.
So we pretty much have your wife to thank for all of this.
Yes. Yeah, she is the enabler. She not only buys me shaving stuff for gifts, but she doesn't blink an eye when I spend $100 or whatever for more shaving stuff. She says, go for it. She actually cleaned out a closet in our bathroom and put up some cabinets and made it my shave closet, my shave nook, if you'll pardon the pun.
Exactly.
That's where I keep most of my stuff. Now, some of it has spilled out over to the other bathroom where I do my videos, but that's the main spot where I do my thing and enjoy it every day.
I know exactly what that's like. It's almost like the products are breeding spillage into your significant other's realm.
Yes, yeah. And every time a new product comes in, she has to smell it or look at it, and she's just fine with the whole thing. Love her to death for it.
Are we ever going to see her in any of the videos?
Probably not. There's been some talk of her helping me with a leg shaving video, but she's a little camera shy and not too excited about the idea.
Now, when did the videos come to be, Mark? When did this start?
Let's see. I think it was 2006. I had just won a camcorder at a professional conference I had attended. Right about at the same time, somebody on one of the old wet shaver forums suggested that somebody needed to do a video on how to shave and post it to this new website called YouTube.
Great.
So I kind of took it as a challenge, and actually, I do have a background in broadcasting. I actually have a degree in broadcast engineering, which is the kind of the behind the camera stuff, not the front of the camera stuff. But I knew, of course, the basics of video production, and with a little bit of refresher kinds of things, I did some test video of what I think would work and posted it to the forum and got some really good feedback and kind of re-edited, reshot some things, and posted that first 3-part introduction to wet shaving videos that you still see on my channel. That was the beginning right there.
And it just caught on after that?
Not initially. It kind of just sat there without doing a whole lot for a while. And then lightning struck, and one of the viewers, and also he was also in one of the wet shaving forums, posted it to Dig, which at that time was hugely popular. Today's Dig is a mere shadow of what it was then. Posted it to Dig, and Dig begat Lifehacker, and Lifehacker begat a couple others, and in the space of a couple of days, the views and the number of subscribers started taking off. So basically it was luck.
Yeah, that comes into play a lot in the shaving world, it seems.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think there is a big element of luck for everything.
I think that the benefits of that luck are still being realized today, and the likes of myself, or who knows who else has come across your videos in the last just couple weeks. I guess what struck me about it, and I think I approached Doug with some sort of skepticism because. I've worn a mustache for 7 years now. Well, that's a long time in my life. I'm 32. It's not a long time in the history of shaving, and it's not a long time in the kind of build-up to what we're seeing going on today in both the world of wet shaving and the world of mustaches. One of the confusions I guess I had when Doug first contacted me was I didn't realize there was a wet shaving thing going on. So he'd ask me about wet shaving, and I didn't know what that meant really. I just lumped it in with this mustache thing going on. And so much of the mustache thing that's going on I kind of find repulsive, the knickknacks, the mustache corkscrews and mustache band-aids and mustache mints and mustache tattoos on your finger and all this sort of thing. And so, when he sent me this video of Mantic 59 going to teach me how to shave or whatever, in my mind there was this like skepticism, and I thought, if this reeks of any of that kind of mustache trinket stuff, if there's any artifice or any pretense or anything of that sort, like, I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with it, And you're exactly the opposite of that. It is so plain spoken. It is so practical. It is so lacking of any artifice whatsoever that I found I just couldn't help but like sit at the feet of this guru and like and just like soak up everything he had to say. And what struck I guess I want to ask is like, how do you stay away from, or how do you not get caught up in all the kind of like hoopla around this scene? I mean, everything you say is so practical. You know, how do you stay grounded, I guess?
Wow, that's a really good question. I've never particularly thought about it before. I've always approached doing my videos from the perspective of being able to inform the viewer, but in an entertaining way. I admit I inherited a kind of a quirky sense of humor from my father and my uncle, his brother, and that kind of comes through on some of the videos.
Definitely.
Kind of the fundamentals or the reason I'm doing this is kind of like what you said. I'm out there to show people in a practical manner just how enjoyable wet shaving, particularly traditional wet shaving, can be. I've run across, I don't know, I really can't judge the actual number, but there are a lot of people out there who are just unhappy with their shave. And I'm trying to show them that they don't have to be unhappy with their shave. They can actually enjoy their shave. They need to maybe unlearn a few bad habits, learn some simple skills, and maybe not pay quite so close attention to the kind of the silly commercials on TV, kind of like you say, Ryan, where they kind of go overboard. In your case, it was mustaches, but if you look at television, some of the razor commercials you see on television are just ridiculous. So
yeah.
I tried to make
one stroke to bliss.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course there's probably no stubble underneath the foam anyway. But that's kind of the flavor of what I want to do is trying and show people how to shave in an entertaining way.
And yet I feel like what comes through is your personality. Like, we get to know you. I don't know how else to say it except it's not a put on. Like, what we see on camera is you. Yeah, there's a sense of humor, but it's just natural.
Well, I think that partly, comes from my broadcast experience, where other people might look at a camera and get a little camera shy or camera fright. I was used to looking at cameras and dealing with equipment and things like that for a long time. I'm since out of the broadcast field for many years, but it was something that was not scary to me. And I think that's something that a lot of other people who make shave videos or attempt some of the other similar kinds of things, they kind of get caught up into the mic fright or the stage fright kind of thing that creates
Sure.
a false image.
About that, Mark, I mean, how long does it take you to put together a video, typically?
Beginning to end, it's usually about a month. I'll do some raw footage. I'll start writing up a narration. I'll start with the editing, realize where I've screwed up, reshoot, re-narrate, and kind of lather, rinse, repeat until I get it to a point where I find it acceptable. I have yet to really put out a video that I am really, really happy with. It comes down to the point where either I release it or it's never going to get released because I'll never finish it.
Right.
I'm sure you know what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an epidemic, right? It's like at some point you just have to stop.
Yes.
It's never finished. You just stop.
Yes, exactly.
You got to distance yourself sometimes. You might come back at it. But that's really another thing that makes you stand out, Mark, in the world of videos. Not only the way you are so genuine in delivering this information, but the narration, too. You can tell you've put some serious time into that, where a lot of these other videos and folks out there doing it, it's just kind of off the cuff. They're tripping all over themselves. Yours is very clear, concise, well thought out. And it's the narration primarily, I think, that's really, it's carrying, besides the visual aspect. I mean, the narration is really strong and carrying.
Well, I think that's taken an evolution, too. I think if you compare the first couple of videos, they were pretty awful compared to the more recent videos.
And your visual, like the animations and stuff like that, are you doing them as well? I believe there's one with a chalkboard. I mean, Is someone helping you with the video?
No. Well,
that's all you.
It's me, but I use some commercial products. I use some animations from Digital Juice for things like lower thirds and graphics, things like that. I have used, what's the name of that animation software? I can't think of right now.
Animation. I mean, After Effects, maybe? I'm not sure.
I have not used After Effects. I'm a devoted Sony Vegas fan right now for editing.
Gotcha.
I do have Premiere Pro and After Effects and things like that only because I got a super deal on the last version of it before they went to cloud.
Right, Adobe
yeah.
Suite.
And I was going to actually start transitioning from Vegas to Premiere, and then Adobe went to this ridiculous cloud subscription format, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that, and I went right back to Vegas.
No, I use Premiere, but I have an older version of, and it's just one of those, any recording software, once you get it, it's like, do I really want to relearn something else now? You know, it's
exactly. And that's kind of what I'm going through with my animation thing. The animation is Anime Studio that I've used a couple times, particularly for the Straight Razor video. So it's Anime Studio and Digital Juice are the two primary animation tools that I use, plus whatever's native to Sony Vegas.
Now, that's great. Yeah, you can really see the time and energy you're putting into these things. I didn't realize it took you a month to put out. That's amazing.
Well, but it's a month, not full time. I work on it, an hour or two each night. So if I did it as a full-time job, I think it would probably go a little quicker.
Not much, though. Not much. Once you get into it, it's a rabbit hole you can really hop into, Well, tell us a little about the Sharpologist, Mark. I mean, how did the Sharpologist come into being?
Well, actually, I had originally started a small blog years ago on Blogger, the free Google blogging platform. And it was really envisioned as just a production notes kind of site where I would kind of put little things about the video I had just put out, references or just a few comments kind of thing. And later it became a little bit more of a classic blog where I might post something once a week or once every other week, just some general information. Didn't really think much about it until a couple years ago. One of my viewers, his name is Andy Tarnoff. He's actually a part owner, co-founder of a large digital media company in Milwaukee, said, you really need to make a more formal blog and put other stuff on it. And at the time, I didn't really think about it. But the more we talked about it, the more interested I became, and I realized I could do things on more than a monthly basis. I could still do maybe a video every month or so, but then I could do something more, forgive the word, easier to do because I would write it instead of video it, do that more often. And the more we talked about it, the more interested I became. And as a kind of a partnership, we cobbled together some tools and then went to WordPress. And that's kind of the genesis of what is now Sharpologist.
That's been up for a couple of years now, right?
Yes, going on its third year now. Believe it or not.
Third year.
No one is more surprised than I.
Now, you did a straight razor video, Mark. Are you a straight razor shaver, like an avid straight razor shaver as well?
No, I play with it on the weekends. It does have a certain attraction to me. The bottom line is I'm just not very good at it. And I suppose if I used it every day and had the time to really devote to it, I would get better and more into it. But I really, myself, prefer the classic double-edged blade, or at least a single blade razor. I have just very recently started dipping my toes in the Kamasori-style Japanese straight razor, which is kind of cool, but it presents its own challenges. I think I'm going to stick with a double-edged razor for now, particularly my Mercure Progress adjustable safety razor, which will have to be pried out of my cold, dead hands and maybe buried in my cold, dead hands. I don't know. But that's definitely my razor of preference.
And you pretty much go in for the modern razors, right? You don't really do many vintage, do you?
No, I'm not really interested in vintage for some reason. I certainly have a few of them, played with them, but for some reason, I gravitate toward the newer razors.
Do you find that much of a difference in between the two, or what is it?
Well, the thing with vintage razors is you never really know what you're getting, even with the same model. You know, you could have 10 1955 Gillette Super Speeds, and they'll all shave a little bit differently, just because of their prior usage. You know, whether they got abused a little bit or not abused. I just can't get a consistent shave for myself. I'm sure for those listening that do like vintage razors, they're probably calling me bad names right now, but in my own specific experience, I've never been able to get a consistent shave out of a vintage razor.
Just recently saw you posted a photo of the Japanese razor that you picked up. Is that vintage, or is that a modern one?
That is a modern one.
Now, how do you learn how to use that? I mean, are you looking at Japanese instructional videos, or do you treat it like a straight razor?
You can treat it like a straight razor. The classic way of doing it was using only one particular side, and I forget the Japanese words for them now, but the blade itself, the blade edge, is asymmetrical and curls ever so slightly, so it's really meant to be used on one particular side. Jim Ryan, who is a wet shaver in Japan, does have a few Kamasori videos, one of which I have on Sharpologist. So that's what I've been using to try to get the hang of it. But of course, as you well know, watching it on a video and actually doing it live can be two different things.
Yeah, well, that's impressive, though, that you're gravitating towards the Japanese, but the straight razor, you're just, yeah.
Well, actually, initially I thought it would be easier to use than a traditional Western-style straight razor. But as it turns out, in some ways it is easier, and then I just kind of traded one thing for another for a challenge to figure out how different aspects of it work. I will say that for myself, and it's strictly personal preference, I do tend to gravitate toward the heavier, larger straight razors. Like, for example, I've got a Hart Steel 7/8, which just plows through my stubble, although I have to be very, very careful with it, otherwise it'll start plowing through my skin too.
Are you being deterred from straight razors now, Ryan? I mean, we almost had you.
Well, no, I don't know where I stand. You know, I don't know where I stand on the straight razor thing.
I'm trying to get him there, Mark, and like you just ruined it. At the last few guests we had Ryan like on the fence. He was leaning more towards the straight razor, giving it a try now.
Well, no, I'm on the fence still. You know, the thing is, I inherited a straight razor. I've had it, I don't even know how long anymore. And when I remembered that I had it, I had to search around for where it was because I've never used it. It's, you know, it's rusty, it's old and stuff. And when we talked to Lynn Abrams, he said, well, you know, send it my way. I'll take a look at it and, you know, see if I could clean it up. And so I did that. It's with Lynn right now. What I'm thinking is, men before me have done this. I'm not the first man in the universe to ever use a straight razor on himself. I can do this, you know, I should be capable of this. And not only that, but I have this heirloom razor. Why shouldn't I use it? My great-grandfather used it. So I think I'm going to give it a go when it comes back. I don't know to what extent. Like you, Mark, it might be a weekend thing. It may be I just try it a couple times and that's all I do. But I think that I've got to give it at least a try. You know, I can't leave it untried. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now.
You can say you've had the experience and it's a connection to your family past.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's a value to me for sure. You know, stuff like that. So, you know, when you use words like it's heavy and it plows through my stubble, I'm like, oh God, that's exactly why I don't want to use it.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, oh geez, we were so close.
No, I watched a Japanese movie just last night, a Seijun Suzuki film called Youth of the Beast, and there is a very heavy straight edge razor in that movie, and it's wielded by a psychopath.
Oh, great.
And it is several times placed against the skin in a very violent way. And, you know, it's those kind of scenes that are, you know, are frequent in films with straight edge razors. And so
Sweeney Todd is the
Sweeney
classic.
Todd, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the classic.
So you go from an electric razor guy to enjoying a sort of celebrity within this world of wet shaving. I wonder how you're handling the fame. Has it gone to your head yet? Are you buying yachts and private islands, or how is this all going over?
As far as revenue from all of this, I'm making beer money, but that's about all right now. Other people tell me I could be doing this as a full-time job, but I'm not quite to that point yet. I will say the one time where I felt like a shaving rock star was the very first, and even partly the second, Great Shave event in Chicago, sponsored by Mertz Apothecary. The first one, 2011, I think it was. I was mobbed, for lack of a better word. I just had a whole bunch of people coming up to me to thank me for my videos and that I taught them to shave, and without my help they couldn't have done it, and they wanted to take my picture with them and sign bottles of Pinot Club aftershave. And after that night, I went back to my room and I looked at my wife and I told her that was surreal. I had never, ever experienced anything like that before. So I liked it, don't get me wrong, but most of the time I deal with people by email or some kind of messaging. So it's very nice. It's very flattering, but I hope it hasn't gone too much to my head yet.
We'll find out when you start wearing sunglasses in your videos.
Well, or you hire Steven Spielberg to shoot them for you.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you get fan mail, Mark?
Every now and again, I'll get a email thanking me for my work. Most of the emails that come in are asking for help, though. They said, what about this? What about that? And can you help me with my nicks or my razor burn? And I say, sure, of course, and I answer every email I can. Some of it is a little late, I admit. Sometimes they come in batches, and it takes a couple days for me to answer everyone. But I'd say I get more questions than thank yous. But the thank yous are nice, too.
Well, we'd like to thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Now, how have you seen the scene grow, Mark? I mean, what's it been like in the last 5 years? I mean, alone.
What am I seeing in the field, you mean?
In the field or on the scene in Reddit and all the forums and forums, and you've seen it growing, and what's that been like, coming at it from pretty much day one almost?
I think two things are at work here. Traditional shaving has become more and more visible because of the ridiculous prices of some of the major shaving cartridges, and people are finally saying, do I really need 3 blades or 4 blades or 5 blades or 6 blades to get a decent shave? Do I really need this stuff? Or they're saying, even with this stuff, I'm getting terrible shaves. Somebody help me. And I think part of it, and I may be talking completely off base here, but based on my own experience, a lot of it has a family connection. Either a parent never taught a child how to shave properly, or even if they did, they want that connection back to their family or to a father or a grandfather. And a lot of people I've discovered don't really know about the old school or traditional products or techniques because they simply watch the TV commercials. And once they're exposed to it, there is a sudden dramatic interest and a word-of-mouth aspect where somebody will be at work and say, hey, look what I found, kind of thing. And it's growing kind of organically, if you will, to the point where now we have this late-night TV commercial for the Microtouch 1 pushed along by that guy from the Pawn Shop television show. So I think we're at a tipping point of really getting an eyeball or an ear out to the world where they realize, hey, there's something else going on here I need to know about. I thought it was really interesting that Reddit's Wicked Edge subreddit the number of subscribers surpassed that of Badger and Blade within 3 years of its starting. In fact, I think it was just a little over 2 years. And that just blew my mind, considering, a lot of the old established forums started about 2006, 2007, and took years to grow. And suddenly, this very young-oriented, youth-oriented Reddit subreddit just comes out of really nowhere. And suddenly they're surpassing Badger and Blade for the number of subscribers. That just amazed me.
Now, why do you think that is?
That's a really good question. I really don't know. I think it partly has to go to the popularity of Reddit as a whole. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if it's people just doing searches on how to shave, doing a Google search on how to shave and clicking links.
Yeah, could be that, or it could be something else.
It could be.
I find it interesting too. I personally think it has to do with just different rules, like a sense of there's more leniency, I think, in Reddit. And it's a whole different crowd too. Again, you're right there. It's a younger crowd, and it's the supposed front page of the internet, right? So that could be that. It's just, it blows my mind as well. I can't really put my finger on it either. I try to daily, but I just don't get it.
I mean, it seems to me that what's happened with mustaches or wet shaving is just what happens with any nook or cranny of culture. It's that because of the information age and because of the internet and social media, like anything that is hidden is going to be dug up. Popular culture is going to shine its light on that thing for a time and then discard it like it does everything else.
Sort of like Rule 34?
That was discarded. I don't know what you're talking about.
But the funniest thing to me about the whole thing is, whereas most of popular culture maybe is very flippant or useless. I don't know. I collect wristwatches. Not me, I'm saying, but just whatever, wristwatches or raised trucks or anything popular. There's no inherent value to them. There's no need for them. Whereas with shaving, everybody has to shave. It's a practical thing that every man has to grapple with in some way. And so I don't know. It seems like it should be more popular than anything when you think of that, when you consider the fact that every single man has to do it. Not every man has to have a raised truck or a cool wristwatch or Britney Spears album. I don't know. But every man has to shave,
Really?
Or have a beard.
Or have it, or else grow a beard. I mean, that's one way out of it, I guess,
I don't try to understand it. I just embrace it, I guess, is what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
Such a familiar story you tell, Mark, that I hear from Lynn, I hear from Leisure Guy. I mean, just how you all come at this purely, it sounds like, by accident, if not fate. I don't know. But I mean, that's the phenomenon. That's the strangest part about this whole new revival. All like the voices out there within the genre all just stumbled upon this by accident. It's neat. Do you see that as well?
To some extent, I think it's that, and it goes back to the family culture aspect. Like Ryan was saying, nobody needs a raised truck or something like that. But I'm not sure how to really express this. But once they learn of it, it's not just a trendy thing or a price thing or even a pleasant experience thing. It all comes back to, in many, many cases, a relationship with an older male relative. And I think that's what holds people when they get interested in the niche or in this type of shaving that may not necessarily occur with another trend or another niche or another hobby. I mean, even
right.
Ryan, even from your perspective of mustaches, you look at old pictures of old relatives and they had mustaches too, and you get that connection. Even going back to your comment about straight razors, you go back even further and just look at a picture, say, from the Civil War period or before, where there was still a lot of facial hair, but they used a straight razor to shape it in some way, whether that, lamb chops or mutton chops or a classic mustache kind of thing. There's still that element of family history and family culture that speaks to people. And once they get interested, they pursue the interest to the point where they decide to learn the skills necessary to make that shave. And then they also realize, hey, this shaving cream smells really good. Or, ooh, this shaving brush really works great, and it's really soft and nice. Or
right,
something along those lines, where it becomes not only a family history, cultural aspect, but something more tangible and tactile that is something more immediate.
That's a very,
Right,
very
right.
noble cause behind all this. And for me, I would say, yes, I totally identify with that. And I really hope that that's something that a lot of people identify with. It sounds like you do as well. I most of the time feel like as a culture at large, we've kind of lost a sense of history or tradition, and I find in my life that I definitely, when I find something that ties me back into that family history or history as a nation, I try to grab onto those things, which is why I'm having my great grandfather's straight razor, cleaned up and honed right now. But, I have an advantage in that way, in that my father was a U.S. history teacher for 35 years. And so I grew up steeped in that, an environment that honored history and that celebrated learning. And I felt like that was a really, really great gift, to me personally. And one I try and share with my friends, but I just don't know that our culture at large kind of celebrates those same ideals. I certainly hope so. And I'm glad to know that you're another one like me that is certainly celebrating those and perpetuating them as well. So that's a wonderful thing. Thank you for that, in addition to your videos.
Oh, you're welcome. And I really think it's more common than you think, based on my experience and people talking to me through email or messaging or the forums or whatever. I actually think that's a little more common now than maybe you think it is. And it could be a reaction to some of our crazy cultural trends going on, like always connected and everybody's got a cell phone and all this sort of stuff. This kind of harkens back to a simpler day, along with an element of the family and the culture being there.
So it's a common thing that you'll hear in comments and questions and emails that come your way then.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that is exciting.
And it's funny. It's funny that it even applies to me. And my father was an electric razor user. I mean, I still think back to watching him shave, even though it was an electric shaver. It still goes back to being at your father's foot. A simpler time when you were a kid, not having to worry about so much except watching your father shave.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I mean, it's Movember right now, so we're pulling a lot of people in thinking that we're a Movember show, I think. But now that we have their attention, and they may not be familiar with wet shaving, do you want to give a quick little breakdown on what exactly it is? I've just been reading people leaving comments like, we need to hear more about some wet shaving action. We don't know what you're talking about exactly. Could you break that down in a few words, maybe? Just run them through it?
Sure. Wet shaving in its basic form is using a manual razor versus an electric razor with some kind of lather. Now, in the context that we are talking about, we generally gravitate more toward the old school products like a single-bladed razor with a shaved soap or cream that you lather up with a brush, though not necessarily. And then you shave in a specific way, at first with the direction of growth of your beard or whatever you're shaving, and then re-lathering and shaving across the grain, 90-degree angles from that direction, and then maybe again, if you want to get a little closer, even by shaving against the grain. But the tools and techniques are a little bit different than what you may see on television, because it's not coming out of a pressurized can, and you're generally not using a multi-blade razor, although it's certainly you're able to use a multi-blade razor. It's just that you probably don't need it as long as you shave correctly. And I think for myself, the big deal is not shaving with a product that comes out of a pressurized can. There's just too many downsides to that, where the propellant of the can gets in the way of the lather and ends up drying out the face to begin with, so it's not as wet as it should be. And then they're having to put in all these artificial ingredients to try and lubricate the hair and skin again, and try and make up for the loss of hydration, the loss of water, with all these extra chemicals that might react with your skin.
Gross. How did we get sold that bill of goods?
That's before my time, because it was sure around before I got started. I imagine it was because it was faster.
I mean, yeah.
That's the single thing that some people consider as a negative with traditional wet shaving, is that it takes a little longer. It doesn't have to take a lot longer.
Forbid.
Under 10 minutes is easily achievable. But yeah, it's kind of tough to do in 2.5 minutes. But, you get what you pay for. You get what you experience. If you want a better shave, you're going to have to take the time to do it correctly.
And is it worth it, Mark?
I think it is. I've gone from less than 2 minutes zip with an electric razor, and I spend a leisurely 10 minutes now with a blade that tracks very cleanly across my skin, with a lather that's warm and smells great and doesn't smell like a deodorant. It smells like something real, like pipe tobacco maybe, for example, or limes. Yep. And it becomes an experience that is almost like meditation, where you're concentrating on something but being relaxed about it at the same time. And it's kind of getting ready for your day. And I find for myself, even if I can't shave in the morning, I'll do it in the evening before going to bed. And it's so close that I'm fine throughout the next day. I look fine, don't have to worry about how I look at work.
Now, have you learned something else? I mean, have you taken what you've learned from wet shaving, and applied it to other aspects of your life? Because I know there's a certain discipline that I've now rediscovered, and I see myself applying it in other areas. Do you notice that as well, Mark?
I always kind of considered that more of an age issue. I'm in my 50s now, and I just generally take longer to do a lot of things.
Do we have any new videos to look forward to, Mark, coming out?
Absolutely. I'm working on several right now. One about how to find shaving products, old-style shaving products locally, where to look, what to look for. I'm going to be doing a little bit more on kind of redoing my lather video in high def. I'm going to be doing actually several, I think, videos kind of redone in a high def format, because back in the mid-2000s, YouTube did not support very good resolution. And so some of my videos are a little poorer quality than I would like. And then I've got some others kind of in my mind I'm thinking about with the Japanese straight razor, and
nice.
A couple other things I've got an idea about but haven't really gone as far as working on a narration yet. But I always take suggestions too. I've done a number of videos purely on people's suggestions, so feel free to send a comment my way.
Yes, we'll ask our listeners. If you have any questions from Mark, you can send them. You can call us up, email us, or email him, and we'll get them to Mark, and he's on it.
Mark, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. For everybody listening, as you've heard, this is the man who taught me how to wet shave, and very appreciative from that, and very appreciative for your time today. So thanks so much, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Mark. It's been really great to have you on board. We've been waiting a long time to get you on here.
Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
That'd be great.
Most definitely. If you want to find out more about Mark or Mantic59 and his videos, you can check him out at Sharpologist.com. You can also find him or his subscription page on
YouTube.com/user/Mantic59.
There you have it, folks. So definitely hit Mark up for some more info. Excellent. Well, thank you again, Mark, and I'll be in touch with you real soon.
Great.
Booyah.
You have been listening to the Moustache and Blade podcast. Thanks for listening, and please leave us a review on iTunes. Almost clean shaven, but hardly clean cut. Mustache and Blade.